Hi, I'm Kurt Doty with Realm IQ. This is a recording of our first El Sailon, which is an AI salon supported by Santa Fe's Office of Economic Development. I believe Santa Fe, and in Mexico for that matter, can be the sister to Silicon Valley and be the Silicon Mesa with all the technology moving here. I'm committed to AI upskilling locally and nationally to make that happen. Futurist Cyndi Coon agreed to go first in our new venture and emphasizes the importance of embracing AI as a tool for creativity and experimentation. Economic development specialist Eric Ruens Whitmore from the city introduced me first for my little spiel, but let's get into it. Okay, so the cool thing is I actually know most of you. And how cool is that? And I really appreciate y'all coming out and supporting this crazy idea that really launched with an idea on LinkedIn. I've talked with a couple of people, Michael and Ryan, and I said I really want to have some type of gathering in town here to talk about AI, which has far-reaching applications that goes across every business vertical, and there's no forum. There's been some events. Carl at the incubator. Where's Carl? Where's Carl? There, in the back. He had a great one, and actually that's where I met Cyndi, our speaker tonight. But beyond that, not much has happened. And Design Core, I think, had one. Robert is here, and oh my God, Renee, and the founders of Design Core, which I'm a member, they had one. But these seemed like isolated incidents, and I think it needs to be an ongoing conversation because it's moving so quickly and the implications are vast. There's controversy, there's excitement, and it's a fast-moving train. And if you're not going to get on the train, you're going to get run over by it. And so there is a sense of urgency. We're kind of a year and 9 months into what we call generative AI, which kind of revolutionized and sparked in me a keen interest. If you don't know anything about me, I'm a brander and marketer. I've been in entertainment marketing for over 25 years, moved here 8 years ago, left some of that entertainment behind, and have found some entertaining clients here. Hutton Broadcasting is here tonight with Christopher, and I've met and now worked with Glenn, who's actually videotaping this tonight, just so you know, you are on camera. And Glenn Silver is a great documentarian, if you haven't seen any of his films. We also have another filmmaker, Godfrey Reggio, in the audience, also a futurist, and his wife, Marty. And she just started a new foundation called the Godfrey Reggio Foundation, which I'm happy to be part of. So, in any case, we have a forum here. Thank you so much for coming. A year and a half ago, I decided not to launch product development in the AI space because I'd been doing that for 10 years of working with startups and had, challenges in the Web3 space trying to communicate what Web3 was about during that time. And it was very difficult. But when OpenAI released ChatGPT, what became very clear through this simple interface of entering a prompt was that people will understand this. They will see the immediate benefits of asking this machine, not a robot, to learn and give you results that Google couldn't, right? And so based on that, I knew it would become far-reaching and ubiquitous in its application, meaning it will and has affected everyone who sits in front of a computer screen at some point, and now a smartphone, and soon the smart home, which I'm going to talk about. But at that time, I felt the urgency was to have people adopt or perish, kind of a fatalistic message, which I played with for a while. It was my marketing moniker, and there has been this reticence, mainly because of this. this adopt and die doomsday scenario, right? Which the Hollywood narrative hijacked the narrative very early on because they had played it out with movies like T2, right? So, or the whole Terminator series, which I love those movies, but that's one story, okay? But Hollywood kind of controlled that narrative with a minority voice on a major platform called Hollywood, right? So a lot of the controversy, a lot of the legal lawsuits that are happening, it's based around IP, theft of IP, being scared of losing control of one's image in this arena of deepfakes. And so, but a year and a half into it, I look at it, and most of the rest of the world has looked at the technology as a productivity tool, and one in which you can adopt and thrive. And so it's a more positive message. This is my tagline now. It's getting better response, but, and it's a pretty girl, but you know, the idea is that one can supercharge themselves and elevate themselves through using these tools. And I call them tools because they are tools. They're not robots. I hate the idea of using robots to explain what AI is, because it's a negative image. It's that replacement image, and it's wrong. So I try very hard not to use robots. When I do use them, I use them in a tongue-in-cheek way with my blog. I have a blog called, you know, and I have an AI roundup, and I always have a space cowboy rounding up little robots. And that's a continuing column that I have. But that's as far as I go with robots. Otherwise, I try to show empowerment of human beings with this technology, which I think is a positive message to put out there. So why do we have this group? Why are we talking about it? And it's because these factors, the future of work, the acceleration of technology, and the evolution of mankind. We're at a nexus of these events. And we're right at that moment. And one, what do we do as a society with this technology? What do we do as a business with this technology? What do we do with this in our personal lives, in our personal work, the future of work? And there's a lot of questions. So I launched a podcast last year to have conversations on AI. And I've been talking with business leaders and AI founders from all over the world for the last 6 months. It's been very enlightening, and these conversations are important to have. And so tonight is a conversation, and I hope you've been able to mingle tonight over some pizza and cookies and get a sense of the community that's here. We have photographers, we have designers here, we have business leaders, we have inventors, we have AI founders. It's quite the group that's assembled, even in this great space, but in this small gathering tonight. So what does the future hold for us? You know, I'm going to get into some things, taking for granted that I spent the first year talking about why we shouldn't dwell in the doomsday scenario, and let's focus on the positivity that's happening in the workforce. So CNBC did a poll, and they discovered, through polling globally, that 75% of the global workforce is already using AI, whether their bosses know it or not, whether their company has given them permission or not, whether these companies have an AI policy or not. Yet only 10% of said companies in the world have an AI policy that allows their employees to actually use this technology. That's a major gap. The 75% is an encouraging number because there's a thirst for it. There's a desire, but the 10% of companies not having a policy yet is a roadblock. It's literally a brick wall. But based on things that are happening, the EU Act, and the AI Act in the EU is forcing some companies to deal with this. So that's a good thing. The other thing to think about, the time that we're in right now, and this is since I'm a brander, I create acronyms and crazy phrases, but the AIoT, the AI of things. It used to be the Internet of Things. Every smart device that you have, a smartphone, smart car, your smart home, is now making the transition to becoming AI-powered, AI-infused, smarter than they were when they were called smart. And so that's something to watch, because the consumer, if you haven't experienced AI, you're going to be forced into it with the devices that you're already using, okay? Whether you know it or not. And it might be a cool thing. I don't think it's any more scary than Facebook listening to conversations and serving you ads, right? Isn't that frightening? And that's been going on a long time. No regulation there, right? But there is regulation coming in AI, which is a good thing. The next thing I want to talk about, and Cyndi's going to talk about this, but I call CCAI, creative-centered AI. There's been a movement for a long time, being a designer, to talk about human-centered design. So when AI came along, people didn't want to be replaced by robots. They wouldn't be. But how do we put the human back in the center of driving this technology? And me, as a creative, I think that creative people need to be at the center of where this technology goes, because it's always the creative people who think beyond the technology and lift it to higher levels than a lot of mediocrity that's happening right now. So it's an important term. The other term, which I didn't make up, is ethical AI. We're at this convergence right now where the original sin, hence the apple and the snake, was big tech scraping the internet, grabbing everybody's IP, and training their large language models on stuff that should have been protected. But it wasn't. It's the original sin. Genie's out of the bottle. There's lawsuits. But out of that is arising what I call alt-tech companies, not big tech, but alt-tech, who are trying to do the right thing and do ethically sourced platforms that try to do it the right way through licensing, through narrow, small language models, SLMs, not large language models. So there is this movement. That's something to track. And because they recognize the backlash is not helping the adoption of the technology. So that said, I want to introduce Cyndi Coon, who I had a lovely couple of conversations with, and I was so impressed with her background. I label her as a futurist here. There's a couple of futurists in the room. She's much more than that, but she's better explaining that than I am. So Cyndi, we're going to do a mic change and a PowerPoint change, but let's welcome Cyndi Coon.
Okay, so I'm Cyndi Coon, and I am super passionate about the pesky humans in all of our lives. Why do I say that? Because I work as a futurist, which is a social science practice that I'll talk about in a minute, but I am known at our labs for saying frequently, the humans are always the problem, and the humans are always the solution. So, if you're a techie and you thought you were coming to a techie talk, surprise! It's all about people. So, my vantage point is I work in a space that I'm able to gaze into the future. That allows me to know a couple things. First of all, I don't deal in dystopia. That's for third graders. You ask any little child, come up with something dark and scary. They can. You can also come up with utopian pretty quickly. We have movies about these things. We don't live in those spaces, and we never will. Hollywood does an awesome job of making us feel like that's our potential future. It's just because if we made tons of movies that were all of us running in our gardens, enjoying time together, none of us would go see those movies. So, quickly, a little bit about myself.
Very good.
Excellent. So, I'm an applied experiential futurist. My background, all the way back, is I'm a trained creative in something called social practice. And that's where you take something important in social society and you wrap it around with temporary public projects that are creative to lift, elevate, and expand. So over the course of my career, I've done a lot of different things. I started my company 22 years ago because I don't play well with others. So I have to work on my own, mostly bring people in and out. But I love humans so much. So in 2016, my practice shifted into a social science methodology that I'll get into in a second, but that's what brings me to be a futurist. I use science to gaze out into the future, come back into present, analyze what we see, and then report to whoever the client is. Here's what you should pay attention to. So if you look me up on LinkedIn, over here at the end of the night, I brought my link tree if you want to find me and hunt down all the things that I'm involved in. If you look me up, it says I'm a time traveler. The reason it says that is because I do, in fact, spend most of my days 10 years out into the future. I look at a lot of data and spend literal months in that data that takes place 10 years in the future, and I'll explain how that works in a second. And then Secret Cyborg is because I am embedding in lots of different spaces, supporting people who are waking up to the necessity for AI. Next slide, if we can. Okay, great. All right, so my two methodologies are called threat casting and future casting. Super real quick about that. You can, again, go to the links and find out more. Threat casting, I co-founded a lab at Arizona State University in 2017 with my partner there, Brian David Johnson. And we also stood up a press that we have. So threat casting, as I said, gazes out generally 10 years in the future, sometimes more, sometimes less. As in COVID, when we were trying to hit 12 months and could only do about 2 months at a time. So it allows us to intake data, and then we host experiences that are super fun, gamified events where people build what we call effects-based models, which are really like movie scripts. So we use those to send a scout out into the future and look around, because the truth is, it's really, really hard for humans to go into the future yourselves. And if you do, it's even harder for me to ask you to go 10 years. So if we send a character, we can get more juicy data out of you. So we play a whole gamified exercise to pull in that data. And if we're threat casting, our team is going to analyze that at the lab to determine how to disrupt, mitigate, and potentially recover from something really, really bad happening. So dystopia, I have heard it. Part of what we do in the lab is we bring small teams together to think of the worst possible thing that could happen in whatever topic we're looking at. We do that because we think if you can think of it, so can the adversary. Most of my work is done for the government, military, higher ed, and adjacent industry. And so our practice lets us put people in a room and go really, really dark with threat casting, because we're going to use whatever you're thinking to make sure no one else ever thinks of that. And in future casting, we're going to look at super big opportunities that we want to intentionally enable. So threat casting we have at the lab at Arizona State University, and the applied futures lab that we do the future casting is here in New Mexico, where I'm at 2 hours north. Next. Okay, so this model of what we're doing we have had a practice for many years that is very labor intensive with our hands. And Michael asked earlier about the practice, can you turn it all over to AI? No, you cannot. And I will tell you that we have partners at Army Cyber Institute that sent us PhD students to say, we don't believe you. We think this work that you do could be done by AI. It cannot. And it cannot yet because AI doesn't have the reasoning and the understanding of meaning that we have. It's not yet possible. Even if it were programmed, it would not find nuance in scientific data in social science. Next slide. So we've been researching AI since 2017. And in a minute here, I'll show you a cover report that you can go and read and download from the website. And in that report, we saw the signals and the indicators of AI coming. And it came a lot faster than everybody thought, and I'm sure everybody in this room agrees with that. So the signals and the markers that were present really were when this lifts off from the programmers, the developers, into the public, everything changes. So we saw that coming, and I would definitely say when it happened, everything changed. So how can we use AI in a way that really does benefit humans? Here's the deal. AI, if you jump in, appears fun and creative and engaging. However, it requires human engagement and interaction still. So the thing about it is, as Kurt mentioned too, it's a tool. And here's the thing, when you are talking to folks out in public and they begin to feel fearful, because lots of people are and lots of people will, it's a tool. The public, especially the art community, panicked when photography came out. It was a hot mess for about 30 years while we debated, is it art? It's ruined art forever. No one will ever make art again if you would just take pictures. Yet here we are. And same thing happened with .com. Lots of people thought this is going to ruin things. Lots of people didn't want to engage. Yet almost everybody has a website now. That's where we're headed. So many people are already using this, they just didn't realize it. Your auto text corrector that thinks, what's the next thing you might say? That's AI. All your spell check that's been correcting you for a decade now, that's AI. So when the fear comes in, we need to do our due diligence to constantly remind people we're not living in a Terminator movie. And we're not going to be. It doesn't roll out like that. Whenever we've had technology that the humans cry to the heavens, we're doomed, we're over. We aren't. We figure it out. Yep, lots of changes are going to happen. But if we keep it right back at the humans and how to engage them, so how do we do that? We make it a play space. It's great that so many organizations have been dabbling in AI over the last 18 months for efficiency, which it is. If you are not using it, get in there and do some basic stuff. You immediately have a personal assistant. But we can go beyond that. Next. Maybe. Okay. So, will AI take jobs from humans? Yes, of course it will. Here's the thing. You've already been watching it happen. You've already showed up at fast food restaurants that have turned into ordering kiosks. You already go to grocery stores that are self-checkout. You've been being in transition for about a decade now. Do we feel sad that we are going to have to eventually go to places that we used to get to visit with people? Yeah, it's going to be weird. So you know what happens with that? When we lose all those jobs at fast food restaurants, gas stations, grocery stores, all of those kind of things, where do those displaced people go? Number one, if we begin to let them play and they get to explore natural human creativity and imagination, someone figures out all new things. At some point, all the things we are experiencing right now didn't exist. We are okay as humans. We will always keep going because the strongest thing we possess, which we have yet to find in any other animal, we're capable of thinking about the future. Not just building our nest to attract a mate, we're capable of imagining the future. So if we're capable of imagining the future, what else are the humans capable of imagining? So at the core of, and I had to put this in because the other thing is if you're playing with AI, please keep a folder with all the funny, hilarious, if everyone will take a look at that wonderful hand that AI made. I'm collecting all of this stuff because it's going to be so much fun to look back because it's going to be gone and probably quicker than we all imagined. And so one thing to do too in the play space is play with it. Bring it along. I don't shy away from, if you've noticed all of the images have been AI-generated images, and if you really stop to take a look at them and read them, they're filled with misspellings and crazy funny things. Because it's also time to be documenting. What are the humans doing? Because we also have to show proof of our work. So what does that mean? So if you don't know Jason Allen, and I'm going to take this in. Look up Jason Allen. He is currently in a copyright battle. He is the pioneer in going forward and trying to get his art copywritten. So what did he do? He played and played and played and played right when ChatGPT first came out. And he really got into it, and he is an artist. So he played so much, he had a vision for a space opera, and he worked with Midjourney, and after about 640 some prompts and take this one and work it this way, if you've played with Midjourney at all, you can put pieces back in and it'll work off that piece. So at about 640 some prompts and reworks, he finally felt good about the piece. Then he found a brand new, it was 2 months old at the time, AI company that would 3D print art and paintings. And he entered a contest in Denver, and he won. And the other artists were livid. Livid. He got death threats, still does to this day. People told him he should unalive himself. His next stop is the appeals court. After that, he goes to Supreme. Why is this important? It's important because Midjourney is sitting right over there on my computer. Is it going to produce anything while I'm standing here? No, it is not. It requires the human engagement to move it forward. That's why humans will remain at the center of AI. It's a partnership. It's a collaboration. And if you engage with it in a partnership that feels like you have an intern, and one of the ways you can do that is by using ChatGPT, creating your own custom bots, and you start to engage with this stuff, and you really start to have a connection where they learn things about you, and it does make things more efficient. We are moving that way. Whether we want to accept it or not, we have to find our place and our play inside AI, because shortly here, your personal bot that you will have to make will go and talk to your doctor's office bot to make your appointments, will go and talk to your dentist office to make your appointments, will go and talk to the DMV's bot to make your appointment. That's the future. Is it 2 months from now, 2 years, or 20? I don't know. But that reality is coming. So, next slide. I gotta go faster. Okay, you can go next. I talked about that. Okay, so here's the thing about humans right now. Our minds are so incredible. The reason I would never, ever pretend or use the words prediction. As a futurist, we do not predict. There are no crystal balls involved. It doesn't work that way. What we do instead is deliver multiple probable futures. And we say, it will not be any of these 5 futures exactly. Instead, it'll be pieces of each one. And we tell you what to look for and what to do and who to call. But here's the thing. We do that because we deliver it in science fiction stories. Because it's more palatable to the human. You don't want to read about your own life possibly going really bad in 10 years, but it's easier to read about a science fiction scenario. We work in imagination and creativity to move forward what we're working on and what we're delivering. So, some of you may have heard the Ethan Mullick quote. He's at the Wharton School, if you don't know him. And I'm paraphrasing. Basically, it's not that AI will take your job away. It's that someone who knows how to use AI will take your job away. I'm going to go further with that, because I actually think there are a lot of people out there right now who can use AI and are using it in the sort of used car salesman, charlatan way that's not going to benefit most people. What is going to benefit people, and the people who are going to be the most employable in this space, are the people who have played, not because they have figured it out and now they're an expert. And if you find anyone who says they're an expert in generative AI, run the other way, lies. And that's because none of us can be experts right now, because every single one of the platforms changes every Tuesday. I mean, every time I go onto something, it's in a different format, and there's something new I have to learn and figure out. So there's no experts right now. There's just people playing. And the people playing, why are they so employable? Because if you play and play and play, you create a state that is a permission to play. And if the humans feel like they have permission to play, they will keep going in and messing around. Those are the humans that are going to be employable, because they're going to come in and say, well, I haven't used this particular AI, but I've used 27 other ones, so I'm sure I can play with it and figure it out. That is how to keep the humans at the center. Play, creativity, and imagination. Next slide. Okay, so now I get on my soapbox and get really passionate about the humans. Hold. All right. Here's what I believe. You've heard the statistics of only about 7% of our population is actively using AI on the daily, but only about 2% is using it more than an hour a day. So that leaves out a lot of people. I also spend a lot of time working in digital equity. So I am well aware of, if you do not know this statistic, 25% of our US population does not have access to the internet in their home. Okay, that's going to change. We have a whole bunch of money rolling in everywhere in the nation and our territories. So what happens when suddenly people who never had internet not only have internet, they have access to all this free available AI? overwhelm. That's what happens to the humans. So here's my soapbox. I believe we are going to have not a slow ramp onto AI for the humans. I believe it's going to happen fast and furious, sudden, and for a reason unknown. But I think it's going to happen in a tsunami tidal wave. So what that means is a lot of people are going to be in a position where they go from I've never even heard of any of these names, OpenAI, Gemini, anything, to, oh my God, I have to face this. I can't use my bank, I can't go to the grocery store, I can't use my phone, I can't use my car, I can't. So the real thing about keeping humans at the center of AI is the humans who have dabbled at all. You must be generous and continue to be generous. Even to your Uncle Bob, who you have said 25 times, you must learn this, and he says no, and he comes crying. Be generous. They're going to come in droves. Have a plan. How are you going to help people so you're not overwhelmed? So if you are playing and dabbling at all, make sure your heart is really big, really generous, and you're ready to help anyone, from the person you overhear at Starbucks to someone you've been poking at for the last 18 months. Who knows when the tidal wave will come, but here's what's worse. It'd be better if it were tomorrow. It won't be. So by the time it hits, anyone who's touched anything, as you are already, will be so far ahead. Sometimes I constantly marvel to really recognize those of us who've been playing in this space for 18 months. If you haven't touched this, it is like a gulf already that's very wide. Next. Okay, so it's really important for all of us to set up spaces that allow for AI play without requirements, without fulfilling needs and assignments. It's the F around and find out, just to see what happens. There's some statistic, and I'm forgetting her name, Dr. Karen, someone, and the statistic is somewhere around, it takes your mind about 400 times to actually change a synapse through learning something. So if you're trying to figure something out and learn it, it takes a lot of repetition for you to be like, yes, I got this. Whatever. It's about 20, 25 times if you're learning that exact same thing through play. The science is there. So if you are taking AI too seriously, start playing. If you don't know where or how to play, find communities. If you need some, get my link tree. I will help you find them. Next. Okay, so this is some of the research I mentioned. So we produce technical reports, again on the link tree. You can find these. So any technical reports that are public, they're available, and you can read them. And they're not all about AI. So they're about all of my practice and futures. Also, I am the queen of asking the right question and developing extraordinary, exquisite research questions. So because of that, I do a lot of work and a lot of research in creating structured interviews for people, which produce a lot of data. And then a lot of trend reports. So that's an AI report we did about the bots are coming. Prepare, prepare. Next. Also getting a lot of requests in this play space. So what does that really mean? The AI workshops and training right now I don't spend time training people on any of the tools. No one needs to be trained on that right now because they change every Tuesday. Instead, we focus on mindset because a lot of teams at organizations have been told, you can't touch that. Don't touch the AI for the last 18 months. Don't bring it in. Don't touch it. Don't even use it at home. Don't look at it. Don't talk about it. Now these same organizations are calling and saying, crap, okay, this team needs to know. But you can't just assign them AI for their workload and expect them to go, yes, this is very proficient for what my needs are. That's not how it works right now. Right now, the training has to be mindset. People have to have permission to play, they have to become unafraid, and they have to understand the boogeyman is not coming. And I will add something on that note too, that I use a lot because I am a futurist who works with government and military. I also do classified work. So when people come at me with the dystopian fear of AI, what I love to say is, I understand that, and I hope you will do continued research. However, if you're worrying about it, let me assure you, the people who work in that, in security and intelligence, they got you, okay? Their day job is to make sure AI doesn't eat us. I promise. So if you have people in your life who are stressing and worrying about this, in the most polite way, ask them, do you work in this industry? Anywhere near? And if the answer is no, then even if you did deep dive research based on your worry, what are you going to do about it? You got someone to call? Don't spend time worrying about something if you aren't the direct solutionaire. That is really important for the humans to understand. There really are people. Are things going to go wrong? Yep. Yes, they are. Things are going to go wrong. You know why? Not the AI. It's not the AI's fault. You know whose it is? Humans! You do weird shit, and we can't figure it out until it happens. So yes, things will go wrong. Yes, we'll hear about things in the news, and people will point fingers and go, see, we shouldn't have let AI happen. That's not what's up. So as we, you can go next slide, as we move forward in the AI future, I think the other thing that's important and should be a personal commitment is, what are you going to do about it? So my commitment is I've stood up another press here in New Mexico because lots of thought leaders I know working in AI cannot get published because all of the publishing houses are wringing their hands about what to do, what will be the decision about AI inclusion. And so I am publishing lots and lots of AI voices right now. Why? You don't make money from books, if anybody's wondering. It's because I want to capture the history right now. That's why I'm so grateful we're able to record this. We're in the moment of it. There are so many people who don't even know what we're up to. Capturing everything you can right now. That's why I said keep a folder of the funny photos and videos and things you've made. It will matter. It is a time capsule of what we're all doing right now, trying to make it better for the humans who come along behind us. Next. And I'm done, I think. Oh, so this is just a slide of past projects, workshops, clients that I work with, in case you're wondering, who uses this crazy future stuff? Lots of the organizations that take care of you in this nation. Final slide, I think, yeah. So here's how to get in touch with me, but it's also over here. It's probably easier to just take the QR code. And then actually, last slide. This is my ask. If you are able, we're in the middle of South by Southwest Panel Picker Week, which is just a crazy thing that you have to get people to vote for you. So those are my 3 South by Southwest panels. So when you go home, and if you're not registered, you have to register first, and then you upvote. And that's just the way it works. So that's it. That's what I have to say is keep humans at the center. creativity, play, imagination, and generous exchange, deep welling empathy. Be the helpers. That is it. That is all. Was that 20 minutes?
Let's get into it. Join me and my guests for Season 2, New Conversations on AI.
Realm IQ Sessions. Hosted by Kurt Doty. Watch on YouTube or listen on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Realm IQ. Book your corporate AI workshop today.